this recording, the presentation of preparing your personal statement, is going to be recorded. If you want to go over anything later, we'll be posting it on our website where we have the login area for our clients. So you'll be able to find an MP4 there. And so if you don't get something or you want to see the slideshow, this would be the place to go to see it. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to mute you all. Mute everyone. Yes, okay. All right, here we go. All right, so as we said, today we are going to talk about your personal statement. We're going to review, we review a lot of personal statements each year, and the most common errors we experience are really in structure and focus. So, let me see. Today we're going to go over the focus of your personal statement. We're going to go over the format, the content. We're going to look at the brainstorming worksheet that we have, the review that we do, some frequently asked questions, and some resources. So we'll just go to the next slide. I'm assuming you can see the slides. So let's talk a little bit about focus. Most of the personal statements we receive before they're edited, they're written chronologically, and they generally lack a strong focus that the reader can follow through the entire essay. Typically, they sound like this. I decided to become a doctor when I was 6 years old, and my grandfather had a heart attack. Then I got excellent grades in the sciences in school. Then I went to medical school. Then I studied for the steps. Then I did some rotations. Now I am applying for internal medicine residency. So it's chronological. So I did this, I did that, I did the other. And it ends up being almost like a narration of your CV with a couple of anecdotes. And we think that that's a really not a good way to engage your reader or make your point. These essays we get often meander all over and tell your whole life story in detail. It's not exactly what the program directors are looking for. We believe that your personal statement should be focused on the single most important question in the mind of your reader. I'm going to unmute you. Let's see. I've unmuted you, and you can also chat if you want. Does anybody have an idea what the question is? The main question that's in the mind of your program director or committee member reader? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Okay, well, everybody's muted themselves. So nobody wants to answer the question. I'll answer it. So the most important question, what drives you to become a doctor in the certain specialty? Okay, that is a question. That is a question. It's not the main question. The program director wants to know why you want to do this specialty. That is also an important question. Good morning. Sorry for being late. That's fine, Milos. No problem. We're just getting started. Welcome. Why I want to Okay, I guess somehow I muted myself. Okay, can you hear me now? Am I good now? Okay, great. I don't know what happened, but I'm not going to do any more muting because I'm kind of getting a little nervous about this technology. Okay, so back to the answer to the question. So I've left you hanging a little bit. So the main thing that your reader is looking for is understanding why you are the best candidate for this particular residency program. And then woven into this answer is, how do we know you're going to finish residency and pass the boards? Now, you see, that is their primary focus. We've all kind of come up with all these questions that we think are really important, but this program director has as their main concern the prestige of their program. They do not want anybody flunking out. They don't want anybody that comes for a year and says, this is not the program for me, or anybody who doesn't pass the step threes, or anybody who finishes because, I don't know, their life gets too complicated for them. They want to know that you are going to work hard and that you're going to finish successfully. So keep that in mind. You need to prove that to them in your personal statement. You need to talk about all the things that make you the best candidate for the program. Now, it may be passion, that might be part of it, maybe hard work, that may be part of it, but that's not specifically the answer to the question. The answer to the question is, how can you guarantee this program director that you're going to be able to finish successfully? So that's what we need to focus on. Now, I didn't just pull this out of my head. I actually heard this from a program director at Columbia University. He was a former program director and also a former program director at Rush. They both said the same thing. What they are looking for is knowing that this person is going to be successful in residency. That's why the step 1 exam is so important. They look at that first to make sure that you can keep up, that you're going to be able to keep up with everybody else. Step 2, very, very important, but that's not the first filter. Generally, it's step 1. And then they look at everything else. So you guys are all past this point right now, but that test is just so important, because they want to make sure you can keep up, and especially that you can pass the step 3, because people do fail the step 3, surprisingly. So you should keep in mind that this is a job application. I mean, most of you have been in school most of your lives. This is a little bit like school. It's a training program, but you are essentially applying for a job. So they want to make sure that you are prepared for the job, that you're passionate about this specific job that they are offering. That is the specialty area. So that's really important. Both preparation, passion, and then how do they know you're going to succeed? So you have to prove that to them a little bit in your personal statement. So let's go to the next slide. And we're going to talk, I'm going to just take you to the next slide, but then we're going to talk a little bit about quotes and a little bit again about this. Actually, I'm going to go back before I do this. This focus on the specialty. Here is where we get into a little bit of trouble sometimes, because we'll get a client who says, I'm so desperate, I'm going to apply for everything. Internal medicine, surgery, psychiatry, family medicine. I'm applying for every PG year 1 specialty. That makes you look like you don't have any passion for one thing. So when your application comes to the committee, that committee, they are looking for you to be that committee is looking for you to be interested in the job that they are offering. They're offering you a job, let's say in family medicine. They want to know that you understand and you're passionate about the family medicine model. Hang on just a moment. I'm going to mute a couple of people because it's getting a little loud. You can still hear me though, right? Yeah. Okay. So you need to be prepared to talk about that particular model of of medicine. They don't want to know that you are interested in psychiatry. They don't want to know that you're interested in surgery. They want to know that you're interested in family medicine because that's the job they're offering. So keep that in mind. This is a job, and you need to talk about that specific job. I always give this, this stupid, I guess, comparison to, if you're hiring a plumber, you don't want the plumber to come and say, I'm really good at electricity and I'm passionate also about carpentry and I also do drywall work. No, you want a plumber. You want to know that that plumber can make your pipes work. So it's the same thing here. They don't want to know that you're passionate about all these different things. They want to know that you're passionate about the job that they're offering. So consider this. We're going to talk about doing different personal statements for different specialty areas. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is really critical. This is a job application. Now, in terms of quotes, a lot of people want to start out their personal statement with a quote. We believe at Chicago Clerkships that quotes generally don't help you very much, especially those quotes that are perched at the top of your essay and then you never address them or refer to them again. If you have a quote that is really important in your life and you really want to use it, we suggest that you weave it into your conclusion and make sure that it is relevant to the rest of your essay. Now, if you insist on using it in your opening, then make sure it's woven in and that it really, again, is relevant to the rest of your essay. The last thing you want to do is waste a whole line, introduce a concept that's said by somebody else, some famous person, and then never refer to it again. So that's our feeling about quotes. I used to be really hard line about this, but kind of softened up over the years. But I don't really like quotes that much. Honestly, I think it's a waste of space unless it's really, really relevant. So let's go on to format and structure. Let's talk a little bit about structure and why it's important. We believe that, and I'm saying we believe because there's a lot of takes on this. You might talk to somebody else and they think that there's a better way to do this. But we at Chicago Clerkships, we believe that the standard essay format as the tried and true structure will help you make your case because you're trying to prove that you are the best person for the job. Out of all the other people they are interviewing, you are the one person they want and need for their program. And so we think that this will help you. It's not the only kind of personal statement that you can write. Certainly, there are lots of ways to structure your essay, but this is the way that we recommend that you write it so you can make the compelling case for your candidacy. Your reader will have no question whatsoever about the point you are trying to make. And that's what we want. We want your structure to be transparent so that they can see who you really are through what you say. Here in the US, we have this structure seared into our brains from an early age. It's a model we're very familiar with. If you see any of the court dramas, you will see they use this model. Everything is here's the opening, here's the evidence, here's the conclusion. And so, so we think that this is also an easy way for you to get all of your information into your personal statement. You're probably familiar with this method. It's, most school systems, I think, teach it at some point or another. But here's kind of a picture that will help you visualize. I liked it. To me, it looks like a little spool of thread. You have a lead paragraph or introduction. At the end of that paragraph and introduction is what we call your thesis. That's your main argument. I will be referring to this as a thesis statement or a main argument throughout the rest of the presentation. This is really critical, this piece right there, the thesis. So just remember that this is just at the end of the opening statement. And then there is your body paragraphs, your supporting evidence, and your conclusion. Now we'll refer back to this slide a little bit so you can have the visual, but we're going to move through these different pieces. So your lead or opening paragraph. Your opening paragraph introduces the reader to you. Now, they say you only have one chance to make a first impression, so this paragraph needs to be good. You start with some general statements. If you want to use a quote here, again, it should be relevant to the entirety of your essay, and especially relevant to this little piece over here, the thesis. I don't know if you can see my cursor, I don't think, but it should be relevant to your thesis statement, okay? At the end of this paragraph, with your thesis statement, you are going to state clearly and unequivocally the sum total of who you are and why that makes you the best person for the job. This is your thesis statement. Now, that's a lot to put into one sentence. That's why that sentence is critical, okay? Your thesis statement is the key to who you are. It's your hub, your axle, your anchor. It's everything that this statement is going to revolve around. It's your main argument. Your entire personal statement should revolve around this and tie back to this statement. So this is really important. Here's an example. These characteristics, plus my strong determination and commitment to patient care, high adaptability and self-motivation, make me an excellent candidate for a residency position in internal medicine. Okay, that person has summed it all up in one super strong statement. No waffling, no meandering, very strong, very direct. Here's another one. I am confident that my solid academic preparation and medical training, my personal and clinical experiences in the U.S. and abroad, and my desire to continue learning so that I can live a life of service to others make me a well-suited candidate for your family medicine residency position. Do you see how strong those statements are? You'll notice they also mention the specialty, okay? So again, opening paragraph, maybe 2 to 5 sentences, maybe a little bit more, maybe less, depending on what you have to say to introduce yourself. Strong opening argument or statement. Answer the question, why are you the best candidate for the job? What makes you likely to be successful in a residency program? Little bit about your skills and attributes. Now, we don't want to go on and on because we're going to develop this a little bit later. And then what's important is that you're not embarrassed. So your personal statement is, good morning, Abdelaziz. Sorry you missed it, but we'll have a recording. You missed the first piece, but we'll have a recording for you. Don't be embarrassed. This is your main marketing tool. It needs to be strong and direct. They want they want to see that you have some strength of character, that you can talk about yourself in sort of an objective way. So you shouldn't be embarrassed. You need to say things directly. At the same time, if you are a person with a lot of experience and you're an old IMG, you want to also weave into that teachability, because that's part of the reason that they will often cut you off after 5 years of after medical school, is that programs want somebody who's teachable. So if you have that issue of lots and lots and lots of experience, you need to emphasize teachability, that you are still flexible, you're still inquisitive, you're curious, and you're not going to come in as a PGY1 trying to boss everybody around. So consider that. Most people are not in that category, but I think it's worth mentioning. All right, so then we go on to your supporting evidence. These are your body paragraphs. Now, we'll just go back quickly to our little, you can see our little spool of thread here. These are our body paragraphs. These body paragraphs are going to support our main thesis. So that's important. Our main argument is there, and we need to support it. We need to prove that what we were saying is true. I'm assuming everybody can still hear me. I get a little worried about this. Okay. So you will use your body paragraphs to prove that your thesis statement is true. As supporting evidence to prove your thesis, you are going to demonstrate that you are prepared academically and experientially, and you have specific career goals. You should dedicate at least one paragraph to each of these areas. Now, let's talk about academic preparation. In this section, we suggest that you discuss how your academic preparation makes you the best candidate for residency. And in this paragraph, you might want to answer some questions, some big questions about this, but always keeping in mind that the biggest question is, how do I know this person will finish residency and pass the board successfully? So you should talk a little bit about how you have prepared yourself academically, that you can, you'll be able to keep up with grand rounds and present cases and that you'll understand them. And so think about the questions of how your academic preparation helped you arrive at the choice of the specialty. How did medical school prepare you for the rigors of residency? What interesting projects or experiences do you bring to residency from this period of your life when you are preparing? And just remember that you are, this is not just a run through of your CV. You want to discuss these questions in a thoughtful manner. Consider integrating this question: what did all of this academic preparation mean to you as you prepared yourself intellectually? So we don't want just a list of, I did this, I did that, I did the other thing, but what did this mean to you? How did this make you a good candidate? How did this prepare you for the rest of your life? Programs are looking for candidates who will pass the boards. They want 100% pass rate, so their programs continue to be ranked well. So your academic preparation is critical. You need to discuss this. What will give them the confidence that you will pass the boards? Now, some of you have already taken step 3. That was, you can do that. That's an excellent way to prove that you can pass the boards, is that you've already passed the year 1 test. So think about that if you're still in process. So let's see, I'm going to give you an example. Let's see if I can put it up here before we go on. I'm not sure. I've never done this before with this platform. So let's see. So here's an example of what I think is there's content playing, and play a new one. Yeah, we'll go back then. Sorry about this. Okay, it's loading. And we'll go back to that. So I have example 1 here. I don't know if you can see it very well. I'm going to read it because everybody always asks me for examples. So here is a way that this person did their first paragraph and then their second paragraph. And I think this is one of the strongest ones that I've seen, so I'm giving it to you. So this person says, the idea of translating complex knowledge into a significant difference in the lives of others inspired me to engage in a career of medicine, and inspired a passion for internal medicine specifically. Right off the bat, talking about the specialty, right? I've always been fascinated by human physiology and mechanisms of diseases, and since early in life, I have been exposed to challenging experiences that have helped me grow as a person and forge my character. Growing up in a rural town taught me to face every obstacle with hard work, perseverance, discipline, and a compassionate attitude. Now we're starting to get a feel for this person, who they are, how they grew up. But then they go right to the point. During medical school, I managed my time not only to graduate magna cum laude and obtain multiple academic awards, but also to stay active in extracurricular activities, which honed my abilities of teamwork, logical thinking, and teaching. Now we go to the main argument. Okay, so they've introduced themselves. It's kind of a long introduction. It's okay. These characteristics, so sum it all up: plus my strong determination and commitment to patient care, high adaptability, and self-motivation make me an excellent candidate for a residency position in internal medicine. Now, they go to the second paragraph where they're talking about their academic preparation. So here's your transition. Many experiences through medical school, so he's tying back, right? These characteristics, my experiences through medical school and afterwards reinforced my decision of becoming an internist. Okay, it's a transitory or transitional statement, right? So he starts to talk about medical school. He starts to talk about his skills being refined. I'm not going to go through and read the whole thing, but he talks about medical school, and he talks about the impact that this made on, I don't remember if this is it could have been a woman. So I'm going to say they talk about the experiences they had in medical school that help them to prepare themselves for residency. You can see how they go through this. You'll have access to this document later. You can see how this candidate begins her essay with some general statements about herself, and then she ends the first paragraph with a strong statement focused on why she is a great candidate. Okay, so that's the main argument. Going on, we see in this example that she opens her second section with a general statement. Like I said, it's a general transitional statement. It helps the flow, ties to the thesis. And she mentions, again, internal medicine in both. So we are reinforcing passion and commitment, but we're also talking about how this person is prepared. The specialty doesn't necessarily have to be in the tie back in this transitional statement between paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, but in this particular essay it serves the purpose. So in summary for this particular example, we see her demonstrating her academic abilities by noting her accomplishments in medical school. She has made the tie. Excellent candidate for internal medicine, which leads to a decision to become an internist, which leads to medical school training, then taking initiative to enhance her training, teaching experience, and research experience. You can see it's very strong as far as reinforcing the academic preparation, teaching experience, research experience at the end. So all of these, I found that this was a really very content-rich and very persuasive demonstration of this person's academic preparation, and it flowed very nicely from their main argument. Okay, so here's another essay. This is a little bit briefer because I've only put the last sentence of the first paragraph, which is, remember, your thesis statement, your main argument, and then the first sentence of the second paragraph, okay? So, I am confident that my solid academic preparation and medical training, my personal and clinical experiences in the U.S. and abroad, and my desire to continue learning so that I can live a life of service to others make me a well-suited candidate for the residency position, So then the second, to see the link, the first sentence of the second paragraph, she says, since I was very young, I have experienced compassion for the physical and emotional suffering of those around me. So that ties back very nicely to the last sentence of her first paragraph, which is her main argument. So it ties very nicely back to the main argument. Now, this person then goes on, I don't have it written down here, but this person goes on to say that, they talk about what they did in medical school, how their academic preparation engendered this compassion for people and their suffering. And so they're tying it, it's all tied into the first sentence of the second paragraph, and that is tied into the last sentence of the first paragraph. So you see, all of this needs to tie together and flow. I guess that's the point that I'm making here. Okay. So then we're going to talk about your experiential preparation. If you remember our little spool of thread, this is the second paragraph, right? There's no way to get away from talking about experiential preparation in the first paragraph, because medical school, you have clinicals, and so there is some experience there, but you really want to make sure that you focus on academic preparation in that second paragraph. And in the third paragraph, you move to experiential preparation. You'll open this section again with a transitional introductory statement. You'll follow this statement with a discussion where you demonstrate through your experience why your choice of specialty is right for you, why they should hire you. You can talk about your rotations, research, extracurricular activities, other work experiences. Essentially, you will want to discuss how these experiences make you the most qualified candidate. We don't want you to list them chronologically. Then I did this, then I did that, then I did this other thing. You can see where I'm going with this. We get a lot of chronological personal statements, and I just can't tell you how boring they are to read. It's just one thing after another. Discuss these experiences, and discuss what they meant to you. Discuss what they meant in terms of preparing you for the future, specifically in terms of residency. Discuss how they solidified your choice of specialty. Discuss how they changed you as a person or your approach to your field. Don't just narrate your CV. They want to see through this that you can take leadership and that you can work in a team. Now, those sound a little bit diametrically opposed, but it's not true. Sometimes you need to be the leader, and sometimes you need to be the follower. Sometimes you need to collaborate where everybody is equal. They want to see that you can do that. They're looking for someone who can persevere, especially through that awful first year to the very end. So, and then to the very end of residency and pass the boards. Okay. So let's just read through. We won't have a lot more examples, but I thought these examples were particularly good. Let's go and look at how example 1 did this. This person says, while working as a primary care physician in an underserved community, my clinical skills improved every day as I diagnosed and treated patients with many diverse medical conditions on my own, from a simple cold to cardiac arrests. Okay, so this again is tying back to this person's statement, right? That this is their, if you go back and you can see their all of the things that they talked about themselves, that they summed up in their thesis statement, this is part of it. So then this person says, the lack of resources was frustrating and difficult, but it made me better and more creative. Okay, so take a bad thing and, as I say, take lemons and make them into lemonade. It was apparent that small interventions can make tremendous changes in the lives of others. So they're talking about what happened, right? What they did, but then also their thoughts about it, how they felt. This is important. It was apparent that small and blah, blah, blah. Okay, during that year, I also had opportunity to reopen a government-funded free clinic in an impoverished area in the capital. Okay, so this person was involved in reopening a clinic. That's kind of a big deal, okay? And then they talked about how they felt about it. I quickly found myself in the overwhelming role of being a clinician, administrator, and educator, working closely with the community to optimize the center conditions and doing preventive medicine. Okay, so all those things that they did are in there. And now they talk about how they felt about it. This experience will be hard to forget, especially the joyful faces in the community after their clinic was again entirely functional. No award can compare to the satisfaction of having done something meaningful for so many people. And so this person has 2 paragraphs as far as experience, and that's okay. You can do that. You can add more if it's relevant and you have enough to talk about. This person did. So then they go on and they say, what solidified my decision to become an internist was to be part of the residency team at Hospital X, a prestigious internal medicine program in City X. It strengthened my passion for diagnostic challenges and lengthy literature reviews to manage a wide variety of patients, from uncomplicated community-acquired pneumonia to more complex cases such as ethylene glycol poisoning. Okay, I know nothing about this, so you know. So this person is, they are weaving into this anecdotes, right? And talking about how they feel about them. Equally gratifying was to be chosen chief resident of the program. Okay, now they're tooting their horn a little bit, but that's a big deal. Having 30 residents under my supervision was a challenge, but easy with courage and enthusiasm I was able to manage, and it allowed me to develop my leadership qualities. I learned that a genuine leader guides the team, knowing everyone's weaknesses and strengths and how to use them to make the right decisions that can benefit the whole team and the patient. So this is really strong in terms of leadership and teamwork. And also they throw in some clinical pieces, anecdotes, and how they felt about them. So it's really woven in. It's very dense. Not everybody will have all this experience. Some of you are just coming out of medical school. You won't have it. You might just have a paragraph, but that's okay. I'm just giving you sort of one that's really quite extensive. What I guess my point is that, each example, each paragraph here starts with like a mini introduction of what's going to be discussed in the paragraph, and that the person is thoughtful, discusses what they felt about the experience and what they learned from it and how it impacted them. So there you're telling them what they need to know about you as a person, what was meaningful to you, and also the things you did. It's all wrapped in and woven in there. And there's examples there. It's important to have some examples, but not just random examples that are relevant. Okay. So then finally, I'm just going to, because I'm done with this, I'm just going to go back to the other slideshow. Thank you for your patience. Oh, look at that. Okay, so we've reviewed your supporting evidence, academic preparation, right? We reviewed experiential preparation. Now you can do an extra paragraph here if you insist. It's okay if you have a lot to talk about. And then we're going to go into goals and interests. In 5 or 6 sentences, talk about your short and long-term goals. So here is where they'll want to know what you plan on doing with all this residency training, right? The residency it's an extra added medical school experience, basically, and they want to know why you want it and what you're going to do with it. Again, you're going to open with an introductory statement that transitions from the paragraph before. It's even better if you can find a way to tie it back to your original thesis. Sometimes you can do that with just a word, just a transition word. But if you can tie it back, it's always great because it helps the flow, helps the person follow it. You're kind of like you're taking your reader by the hand and moving them through your essay. So consider these kinds of questions when you are writing this part. What impact do you expect to have in medicine or surgery or psychiatry, whatever? What are your short-term and long-term goals? What will your career look like in the short term and long term? Are you thinking of going into research, into policy, into academics? If you're not, that's okay. We need lots of primary care physicians. You don't need to be superstar. But if that interests you, then you should add it. If you don't have an idea about this, don't make something up. Okay, you don't have to have super long-term goals, but if you do, this is where you should add them. You can also add answers to questions like, how these goals evolved, what experiences led you to these goals. You can tie back to maybe something you've talked about before, what personal characteristics you have that will help you reach these goals. Again, you can tie it back to something you've talked about before. So these are the 3 body paragraphs. So we'll just go back. So we look real quickly at our spool. Oops, sorry. Opening statements, your thesis. Now we've gone through the body paragraphs, academic, experiential, career goals. right? And now we are going to go to the conclusion. Your conclusion, okay. It's kind of like an upside down introduction. That's why I make that little graphic like that. Here is where I think some personal details about yourself is really nice. Like some people start their essay with, when I was 6 years old, my grandfather had a heart attack, and that's when I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. You can't imagine how many people say that because it's really common. Heart disease is so common. It's like the #1 killer, right? So I think that if it was if there was something really really meaningful for you, this is where I would add it in the conclusion. You have to understand, these people, they have to read a lot of these essays. Maybe toward the end they're skimming a little bit, so you want the important information up front. You want to have already convinced them that you are the best candidate for this position. They should already be convinced of that before they get to the conclusion. So you need to use your space wisely. Remember, reader fatigue. You have to write to your reader, and this reader has just read 87 of these personal statements and they're tired. This is where you want to throw in that stuff that everybody else will say in their first paragraph, right? This is where you can put an anecdote or a quote. I think this is a great place for a quote that sums up everything. If you want to use a quote, all of these should reflect your personal philosophy of life and ideas and the things that you may have already mentioned in your essay. And your conclusion should kind of restate your thesis, maybe using different words, and then always end by thanking the committee for reviewing your application. You have to show that, you have a little bit of class, right? That you understand that it takes some time and effort to go through all of these things. Doctors are super busy, and sometimes this committee work gets tacked on top of everything they have to do. So you have to show a little class, thank them for considering your application. So I just go through really quickly again. Quotes, my sense is that most quotes are unnecessary and a waste of space. That's my personal opinion, but you may feel otherwise. You may have a quote that has really guided you. And that is 100% relevant to your experience. If that is the case, then integrate it. I suggest you integrate it here. I think quotes can help tie up the essay, right? It's like an extra little bang at the end, a little kick at the end. Anecdotes, they can be used to anecdotes about your life. They can be used to open your essay if they're intrinsically relevant to everything else you're trying to prove in your essay, right? But I like them in the conclusion better. I think it gives a really nice personal touch at the end after you have already made your case. Okay, so we'll move to the next slide now. Where's my arrow? So again, brainstorming. Now this is for people who don't like to write. Doctors are famous for not liking to write. And not even, they always say that the prescriptions are really difficult to read because they have to write them by hand. It's even worse now. You guys are used to, at least in the US, doctors are used to, they're in the sciences generally throughout their bachelor's degree, because we usually do the bachelor's here first. Then they go to medical school for 4 years. And basically that whole time, they're not writing a lot. They're showing up for tests, right? And so a lot of people are uncomfortable writing. And so what we have given you a worksheet where you can start to fill in everything. I think that you should, one suggestion we make is that don't start with full sentences, just brainstorm. Like maybe even like do this with some friends that know you really well. What are you going to put in your opening statement? You can just put words, right? Just like the concepts you want to talk about. And then the academic preparation. Brainstorm that. Just write the concepts. Don't write full sentences. Just write the concepts or pieces of sentences. Just write all that. Just do a huge brainstorm, because sometimes it's the writing which holds you up. And so if you can get something like down on paper, so to speak, that will help you. And then you can put it all together, take all those concepts and start writing sentences. And then with the sentences, you start writing paragraphs. And then you make sure that your paragraphs are framed in a way that makes sense. It has some flow. I'm going to put up some resources that we have. Excuse me. These are all up on our will be up on our website. I think I already put them all up there. One thing that's important is to use action verbs. And sometimes we say the verb to do, the verb to have, the verb to be. Those are our big verbs. I don't know if you can see all of these. I just put it to a full screen for myself. But look at all these great verbs: advised, aided, allocated, analyzed, annotated, answered, anticipated, appeared, applied, blah, 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 blah. If you go and Google action verbs, you will come up with about 4 bazillion websites that will give you lots of verbs you can use. So you don't have those right at hand in your brain because maybe you're not you're not used to thinking this way. You're not thinking of colorful language all the time. You're used to just stating, the facts, the science. This will help you. This gives you some resources to draw on. A lot of people are writing in the second language, and that's really, really hard. So, excuse me. We suggest that you use the resources that are out there. So action verbs. So another thing that you should do definitely is edit your own. Oops, maybe you can email this list. It's going to be up on the website. And you can also Google it. This is not the only list out there. There's about, like I said, 4 bazillion of them out there. All you have to do is Google action verbs. I usually Google action verbs medicine. Then you get a whole bunch of great verbs that you can use. But this one will be up there. But this is not the only one. Sorry. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's go back quickly to, here's another resource that I have for you. It's also going to be up on our website. 5 tips for editing your own work, and the link is there too. These are some ideas that writers use. They one thing that I think is so critical is number 3. Read your writing out loud. And read it to someone. And when they say, wait, I didn't understand what you said, then you have to make a little note that needs to explain better. So that, I think, is really key. This is also up on the website. There's some other things that we'll go over in just one second that are not part of this, but there's more of these things out there. Let's go back to our original slideshow. This is actually working. I can't believe it. Okay, so that's the brainstorming. That's some tips. Here are more tips. I always believe the more eyes, the better. You're not cheating if you let someone see it and help you with it. You want someone to see it and help you with it. I don't know if you've ever read a novel. The first page is usually all of the credits to all the people that helped that writer write that novel. And nobody turns in anything without someone editing it. And that's why you have us at Chicago Clerkships. But we believe the more eyes, the better. Now, you're going to get a lot of contradictory information. You'll put it by someone else, say, I don't like this. And then the next person will say, this is the best part of your essay. So you have to make that call, right? Don't let that freak you out. You're just trying to pull up the nuggets that they're going to identify that really are useful to you. Definitely get a native U.S. English speaker to read your essay and critique it. We offer this service in your package. So I'm reading it. I have a bachelor's degree in English literature. I'm not the best writer in the world, but I'm pretty good at these personal statements. And also Michael O'Reilly is fabulous. And he helps me with it. He's our housing coordinator. So the two of us do most of these together. Sometimes we fight about them. You would be surprised, but we do argue sometimes about what to keep and what to trash. But generally we're on the same page. And so you'll have 2 native U.S. English speakers reading your essays with your package with Chicago Clerkships. But you can get other people too. But this is really critical because some things are correct grammatically, but they just sound weird. And so we don't want anything to sound weird. We want it to flow and sound really natural so that they can really see who you are. If you have some human resources in your life, people that can help you with this, get a couple of people to do it. I think the best case scenario is that you have someone like me that has an English literature degree or a journalism degree, somebody that has a little bit of a sense about writing and style. That's important. Get another doctor to read it. You don't want to say something clinically that sounds not quite right. Especially if you have somebody in the U.S. that is in residency, have them look at it. I always think it's great to have lawyers look at it because they will pick apart your case. They will tell you, have you convinced me? Have you made your case? If you can do that, would be like, for me, this is my dream team for my personal statement. And then there's us at Chicago Clerkships. And of course, we will help you. But I guess my point is here, get as many people to look at it before you send it to us as possible. Now, we might contradict what they say, so like I said, don't freak out about that. It just happens. People disagree. Doesn't mean necessarily that anybody's wrong or anybody's being mean. It's just that they disagree. Couple of other things it's important. Okay, so just remember, I know you all know this, but I'm going to tell you again, this is my wanna, gonna, dat, and my new one is wanna, gonna, dat, and hey. Okay? Wanna, gonna, dat, and hey are not English. Okay? Want to, going to, that. And please don't ever use hey in business communications. I get a lot of emails that start with hey. I know people say that when they send text messages, but don't ever write an email to a program director saying, hey. No, you say, dear Dr. So-and-so. Formal. You cannot lose by being more formal. You can loosen up, but you can really offend people if you are informal. So wanna, gonna, dat, and hey are things that you need to eliminate from your communications in English. Okay, different personal statements for different specialties. Yes, 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 yes. A resounding yes. You can start with what we call a boilerplate, a generic one, but you need to tailor it to each specialty. Like we said in the beginning, an internist is not interested in your passion for psychiatry. A psychiatrist is not interested in your passion for surgery. This is you need to prove that you are 100% passionate about the specialty position that they are offering, okay? Not what they're offering down the hall. This is really, really critical. People don't like to do this because they think it's a waste of time, or they just, it's hard. Now we will only review this. I have to make sure you know this. With your package, we only review one, okay? Because if not, we'll go completely crazy here. We don't have staff to review endless different versions of the same thing. So we'll review one. Do the best you can on that one and then custom tailor it. I suggest you do something like, for example, if you are applying, very typically people will apply to internal medicine and family medicine, okay? So take one of those. Now, obviously in internal medicine, you are going to be focusing on adult medicine. You're going to be talking about disease management. You're going to be talking about prevention. You're going to be talking about, all the things that go into treating and caring for adults, right? Family medicine, you need to talk about the family medicine model because they want to know that you understand that model. In case you don't, it's the whole family throughout the life cycle. This is a model of care. And family medicine doctors are very sensitive to that. They want to know that you understand that this is not just peds plus adults. No, this is a model of care. They want to know that so you can start with one of those, maybe start with internal medicine, talk about adults, and then you'll have to probably slim it down a little bit and then add some things about family medicine and caring for children, caring throughout the life cycle, caring for the entire family, to make a new personal statement. Now, the question has come in. This is really relevant. Our program directors or program committee members are aware that you are applying for more than one specialty? Not necessarily. That is why they say don't apply for two specialties in the same hospital, because they talk to each other. So if they know that that their colleagues down the hall in psychiatry are entertaining the same person as they are entertaining in peds, they might say, well, this person doesn't know, and they talk to each other. Don't assume that people are not in the doctor's lounge talking about these things. They are. And so they recommend that you don't apply to two different specialties at the same hospital. But other than that, no, they're not necessarily aware. If you are applying, in Iowa for family medicine and in Chicago for internal medicine, those doctors, the likelihood that they'll talk to each other is pretty low, unless you tell them. But we don't want you necessarily to tell them. We want you to talk about the position in question, why you want that position. Okay? Again, repeat, program committee's main concern. What is it? That you are going to finish residency and complete and pass your boards successfully. That needs to come through your essay. Someone just asked about how many letters that you can upload. I don't really want to get into the technicalities of the ARIS application right now. That's actually a different webinar. We have that. I'll just say roughly that I think that you can tag different letters to different applications. And so if you're applying to family medicine, you'll want to have a couple of family medicine letters. If you're applying to internal medicine, a couple internal, if you want psychiatry, you got to have at least one. You could have psychiatry and family medicine. You can make the case. There's a lot of ways you can make the case for these different experiences. For example, if you're applying to family medicine and psych, family medicine, a lot of family medicine doctors, they go and they get like a family counseling degree, like they get a master's degree in counseling. And so, because a lot of it has to do with working with within the family system. And so saying that you did a psych rotation actually kind of is supportive of family medicine. You could even talk about that and weave it into your personal statement. It needs to sound like, this whole thing needs to sound rational and well thought out. You don't want them to think you're just all over the place doing all these rotations and you don't know what you want. They're not interested in helping you become a doctor in the United States. They're interested in hiring for the position that they are offering. So consider that. You're already a doctor. They're not interested in helping you be a doctor in the US. They're interested in hiring the right person for their job. So if you begin to think of this in the sort of the job framework instead of the sort of the medical training framework, you get a little bit of you can formulate these things. Now, someone just asked, how important is this step 3 if they already have a high score on their test? So I really didn't want to talk about all these things, but I will, although we're kind of getting to the point where we're finishing up, but I will entertain this. So I just bring this back to how competitive you can make your application. If you have a limited budget, you have to take into consideration that. If you have limited time, you have to take that into consideration. But you shouldn't say how important. Well, I can't tell you. It's 51.7% important that you do that. There's no. It doesn't make any sense to even answer that question. It's important you make your application as competitive as possible and also come across as being teachable. Okay? So those two things sometimes are a little bit contradictory to each other. You want to show that you have experience. You also want to show that you're teachable, that you're not going to come in and want to boss everybody around. Nobody likes that person. They have to work with you for 3 years, 5 years, whatever. They don't want to have problems with you. So you have to show that you're teachable and flexible and adaptable and that you really, really want this training. At the same time, you have to show your experience and you have to prove, like I said, about 20 times already, that you can make it. You'll make it. So how can they know that you'll make it? Well, they're going to look initially at your step one. That's the first filter, your step one. Sometimes they take a combined score, step one and step two, CK. CK. So they want to see that you have the academic abilities to be able to get through residency. That's the first thing they look at. Is this person prepared for residency intellectually? Okay. After that, they look at everything else. They want to know that you can keep up, right? And that you're going to pass that step three and you're going to pass the boards. So step three is another indicator to them that you can do it. So how important it is asking me to qualify that, I can't really qualify it. I'm just saying you need to make it within the context of your personal situation. You need to make your application as competitive as possible. Okay. And so people say to me, what's the minimum number of rotations I should do? Well, I say do as many as you can within your budget. It's expensive. Everybody knows it's expensive. Every single step of the way, somebody has to be paid for doing this. So, it's not cheap for us. It's not cheap for you. Nobody's making big bucks. You can see these companies come and go. They think they're going to make big bucks off you guys. This is not a huge moneymaker. This is something that, we, I don't know why somebody's popping up there, but that's okay. This is something that, we do because, we want to have a viable business. We want to help you. But anybody who thinks that they're getting into this for, a quick and dirty money is not that, this whole placement service thing is, let's just put it this way. It's not a big moneymaker. Everybody needs to be paid. The preceptors need to be paid. The agents need to be paid. The insurance needs to be paid. Everybody needs to be paid. So you have it's a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to do this. And we know that. And so you want to make the most of your resources. This is why planning is so important. If anybody is here that's just getting started on these things, that maybe it's still in medical school, look at on our blog, we have an article. It takes a few clicks to get to it. It's about planning. We don't want you to waste your time or waste your money because this is a very expensive process. And so all I can say is in terms of your budget, your personal situation, the support networks you have in your life, make your application as competitive as possible. So that's why we're doing a really bang up job on these personal statements. We want you to match. Then you should do everything else you can to prove that you are ready for residency. And step 3 is one of those things you can do. Okay? So I recommend it to people if you have the time and the resources. But if you don't want to get a low score on it. If you know that you can get a good solid score on the step 3, you should do it. But not if you're going to do it really fast just to do it, because then they'll say, oh, well, how is it this person got a 239 on step 1 and then got a, 199 on a step 3. I don't really know how they grade the step 3 very well, but 199, they're like, this person didn't prepare. Ooh, that doesn't look good, right? So if you can get a good score on that, then you should probably do it. Okay, the next thing, this is so important. So most people, 99.99999% of the people that are looking for residency in the U.S. are looking to work in the U.S. But there's always that person who wants to go back to their country, take this training back to their country. And God bless you. That is really important. But you don't want to say it in your personal statement. I'll tell you why. The reason that, our system is all out of whack, but one of the reasons that we are bringing foreign medicals in to work in these jobs is we don't have enough here. We don't have enough medical schools. That's the problem. Medical schools are highly, highly, highly competitive to get into. So you do your bachelor's degree, then you got to go 4 more years to medical school. They're extremely difficult. You have to start volunteering and doing clerkships and everything from the time you're practically in 8th grade to be able to get into medical school when you're 22, to start when you're 22. So we don't, it's all out of whack. We end up having, the government funds these residency positions. Our government has identified more than 4,000 physician need areas in the country where we don't have enough physicians per capita. Okay, more than 4,000 areas. The Chicago metropolitan area has over 40. It's like 43 physician deficient areas, and just our city. Okay, so this is why they are funding you to take this position. Somebody's paying your salary, and it's generally a combination between the hospital and the U.S. government, okay, the federal government, from the Health Resources Service Administration. They're not funding you to go back to your country to practice medicine. They're funding you because we need to fill these positions here. We need doctors here. Now, I know, some of you are coming from developing countries. It all sounds very selfish, but it is just the reality. So don't say that. Might be the case that that's your long-term goal. You just keep that in your heart, and you don't need to share it with everybody. There's some more resources. Again, you'll have this presentation online. I'm going to put it up there. Hopefully it's not too big at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to go to some questions after this. And of course, good luck, everybody. We want everybody to match. Certainly not everybody will, but we want you to. So I'm going to turn off this recording right now, and I'll get to some of these questions that are in the chat. And because I don't want to make this presentation too big that I can't upload it onto our website. I'm going to turn off the recording now.